Hello everyone, welcome back to the Apache Halloween YouTube channel. In today's video we're going to be doing a comparison between these two animatronics here. Now at first glance they don't really look like they would be necessarily, why would you even bother comparing them? But after looking at them and realizing their history, you would come to realize that they are actually very similar in certain aspects. They are made by the same company, came out in the same year, very similar mechanisms, and some parts are even shared between the two. So in that respect, they are basically very similar. So looking to my left here, we have the Evil Scientist, part of the Attic theme from 2014, and he retailed for $200. And then to my right here, we have the Barnyard Butcher, a part of the Last Chance Gas ISE, and he too retailed for $200. Both made by NewRaySun, a company that I don't think is in business anymore. I'd have to say they made some great props, and I'd argue that these two are probably two of the best ones that they produced. I think one of the first things we should look at are their boxes right here. As you can see, they are very different from each other. And keep in mind, these are the same year, 2014. The Barnyard Butcher's box is the generic slime font. I've seen it for many years up to that point of 2014. But the Evil Scientist has a completely different box, and this was the Attic box, which only props in the certain theme of the Attic had this kind of box. And it kind of makes it a little sought after in terms of the fact that it was a one-year, one-theme deal, and it never occurred again. Spirit Halloween never did this gimmick after 2014. But as you can see, the boxes are basically the same size. They actually stack right on top of each other. They're a one-for-one recreation. But here's the top of the Evil Scientist's box, and then here's Barnyard Butcher's box. One difference I see is the logo. On the Evil Scientist box, you have the actual logo itself, whereas the Barnyard Butcher just has the spirit lettering in the corner. Just the word spirit. But this is one of the main differences between the two. Even though they're made by the same company, they have all this different box design, which I think is kind of cool, really interesting. And it's cool to compare the two. But with the boxes out of the way, let's move on to the actual props themselves. So looking at the Barnyard Butcher, you can see the overall design is very simple, and it's just a basically freestanding humanoid figure. It's got two leg poles and then the main mechanism area and then two arms and the head. Well, it's the same over here on the Evil Scientist. He has the two poles, the same exact mechanism in terms of like control boxes and a gearbox. The only difference with the Evil Scientist here is the fact that the motor for the body turn also turns the neck. Barnyard Butcher only has body turn. The neck is stationary with the body. Now, because both of these props were the same price back in 2014, you would expect to see that in terms of quality and animation, you would see a lot of similarities, and I'd argue that is true. On the Barnyard Butcher, we have mouth movement. We have mouth movement for the severed head, and then we have motor turning for side-to-side movement. We got 3 motors on the Butcher. For the Evil Scientist, we have 1 motor for the mask, 1 motor for the mouth behind the mask, and then 1 motor controlling both the neck and body turn. The quality of the clothing, I say, is pretty good. It's a relatively thick material. All of this stuff feels pretty real. It feels like you could actually wear whatever clothing these guys have. Both of them have like inner foam inserts to make the chest and the back area more filled out. Here we have the same deal. Again, it's got like a foam padding, and then the overalls feel like real overalls. They don't feel cheaply made. Shoes as well are the exact same mold, only different paint jobs. You can kind of see some slight differences. For example, the Evil Scientist's shoes are a little more of a darkish gray compared to the Butcher's, and the Butcher's also has some blood on it. Although I'd argue that these could have some blood on it too, considering that his whole apron and costume is pretty bloodied up anyways. Both props have sensors that are hidden as buttons on the costume. Here is the Evil Scientist's, and then here is the Barnyard Butcher, and I'd argue that these buttons are the exact same. Probably interchangeable between the two. So there are some of the main similarities between these two. Now let's check out some of the differences. And these differences is basically what probably separates the two from each other. First off, I think one of the main ones is that on the butchers, these hands are plastic. These are plastic hands. The hand wielding the knife, this is plastic. So is the hand holding the head. The head is actually all, I'm not sure if it's latex. And if it is latex, it's a very high quality latex because these don't really dry rot that fast. I haven't really seen any actually with dry rotting problems. And that goes for the evil scientist as well. Never really seen dry rotting as an issue. But speaking of the evil scientist, we can see his hands are posable. They are latex rubber gloves here with foam and wire armatures inside to help you be able to bend them however you want. Now this lobotomy kit that he's holding is not included with him. I added those parts, and these are modern day spirit weapons, and I think he looks awesome holding these two. I think it fits him really well with the blood stains and everything. It all just lines up perfectly. But you can pose these hands however you want to hold any really tool or weapon. On the box it shows him holding like a severed arm and like an axe of some kind. And it even says right there, flexible wire fingers. Both have some form of head shell that gives the face its structure. Even though the butcher's is like a burlap material, not latex, he still has the structure under him. Same with the evil scientist. There is some sort of a plastic structure. Another difference is that the Barnyard Butcher does have more LEDs on him. Now, it's not a big difference, but there are 2 LEDs in the head here, whereas the Evil Scientist only has the 2 in the eyes. Both eyes have an odd, interesting fading to the voice and motor, which I think is pretty cool. They like dim as motors are spinning and stuff. It adds some life to them, I think, instead of just having a constant on LED. I think that's pretty cool between the two. But just when assembling both of these characters, you can easily tell that they are very similar in terms of the armature, even though they're 2 completely different characters, which I think is pretty cool. And I kind of wish Spirit Halloween would do this a little more often. Like have similar armatures and like animations, but like the character is different completely. And this does it well. It's not technically like a reskin because the Barnyard Butcher has like the head over here, which is completely different from the mask dropping down on the Evil Scientist. But in terms of structure and the price, they're very similar. Usually the reskins are really just a reskin of a costume over the mechanism. Like you look at Mr. Dark and Hellspawn. They're the same thing, just with a different costume thrown over it. These two are like taking reskins to a next level where it's not exactly the same exact armature and stuff. It's a little different so that they're not really recognizable as being a reskin, even though really analyzing it, they technically can be considered like a reskin in some sort of ways. The Barnyard Butcher could have easily have been a reskin of the Evil Scientist if you didn't have the severed head or the plastic hand holding the knife, because then like maybe you would add posable fingers and it would look just like the Evil Scientist in a way. But making it have the severed head and having different movements compared to the mask on this one, it makes them stand out from each other and builds out the character more, which I think is what these old NewRaySun animatronics were able to do very well. NewRaySun made some of the best Halloween characters that Spirit Halloween has ever seen. You have Harbinger of Hell, he's pretty cool. The Evil Scientist, of course. Barnyard Butcher, probably one of the top 5 best animatronics ever made. Smoldering Zombie is up there too. And these are props that really aren't easily able to build a character off of because they're not something that can easily be personified. I'd argue like Uncle Charlie, clowns are really easy to make a character of because that's kind of what a clown is. It's a specific character. Whereas scarecrows and scientists are very generic nowadays. It's the same thing in some sorts. this scarecrow, because that's what he is, he's basically a scarecrow that is like come to life, is so different from the rest. He is not your typical scarecrow. He's holding a severed head. He doesn't have a straw hat, that's not a thing, and he just looks more menacing than anything. Like, you put this guy up against Strawman or Night Stalker, and they don't even come close in comparing the level of scare factor that this guy has. The same goes with the evil scientist. Now, there hasn't been many mad scientist props that Spirit has produced, but the ones I think of is like Dr. Illume, like what even is that thing? And then the mad scientist and Dr. Shivers. All three of the ones I just mentioned have the white lab coat and very generic with the beakers and stuff, but this guy stands apart from the rest. He isn't wearing a white lab coat. He's wearing like old gray dingy looking, scary looking clothing, and it sets him apart from the rest, which makes him really cool and stands out. He is more memorable, I would argue, than the other three. Definitely more intimidating as well. The mask covering up part of the face makes him seem a little less human, which makes some unknowingness, which also adds to the scare factor. And then the drop down is kind of a jump scare, but not really. But having that little jump scare makes him stand out even more as well. So I guess the main point of this video is just to try and have like a little appreciation for the NewRaySun company, since they're no longer in business. They made some really awesome animatronics, ones that we still talk about today. These guys are both turning 10 years old this year, and they are still very relevant, very cool, and probably two of my most favorite props, definitely in like the top 10 favorites of all time. But those are really my thoughts on these two. I really just want to make a video showcasing the two together because I think they look really well together, even though they're completely different items. They're the same company and all that stuff. I just wanted to give you a little review of some sorts of the two together. Did you guys like the NewRaySun props? I know some of them are like from a long time ago, but I think they hold up really well when compared to modern day Spirit Halloween. So if you have any thoughts on them, let me know in the comments. But I think we'll just do a little demo of the two together maybe, and then just end the video there. So I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Don't